live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the program, I welcome to the show world-renowned singer, songwriter, and pianist who has released a new album titled The Better Side of Me. I welcome to the program John McAndrew. John, great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And, you know, some exciting news. It's all over the internet. Better Side of Me, your new album has been released. And, John, give us a little feel of what this album is all about.
Well, it's kind of been a long time in coming. You know, the history of my music career, I got started and signed by Muscle Shoals Studios, which is down in Alabama, and that got me to LA to do some recording, and I met a guy named Denny Seiwell, and kind of several years later, we had a chance to do this album last year, and actually, we were going to just record a couple of songs. That was the plan, and we got into the studio and did the first two tracks, and Denny looked at me and said, "You got any more?" And I saw this as a really good opportunity. I said, "I got a whole lot more." And about 17 tracks later, we went through them and we got the album Better Side of Me, which is out now.
I mean, for those who may not remember or may not know, Denny Seiwell of Paul McCartney and Wings, I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Well, when we were kind of going down the songs I was going to record, you know, Brian, I'm at Denny's house, and I look over on his bookshelf, and he's got stuff all over his walls. There's a little cassette tape there. It says Billy Joel demo. I said, what is this? Boy, there's something you ought to try to get out of him to collect. He said, I got this little demo tape from a guy. I said, what do you think of this guy, you know? And it's Billy just sitting at a piano singing one song after the other, and it's kind of rough. And Denny played that for me, and I just felt something pretty musically spiritual about the whole situation. But Denny was recording Billy's first album, Safe Harbor, and then evidently Mr. McCartney called Denny and said, "Hey, do you want to start a band?" And so Denny kind of left Billy Joel's record and went overseas and started to work with Paul.
I mean, that is incredible. I mean, you're in good company right away. And how about Fernando Perdomo? Talk a little bit about his contribution to this new album.
Yeah, he's a really integral part. Denny had just done a project with Fernando around a year previous, and Fernando has a studio in LA, and then Fernando plays just about everything. He's known to be a guitar player for a lot of famous artists, and he's kind of a mad scientist, Brian, just my kind of guy. And so, you know, Denny said we can go over to Fernando's and record a couple of songs, and you know, when you listen to the album, the first two tracks are basically first takes that we did. And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, and just the dance between Fernando's guitars and my piano and all that, it felt really magical, right out of the chute.
Oh, and I heard a few of the tracks. It sounds amazing. And we're going to play, we have a little clip I want to air right now on KMET Radio. Let's hear a little clip of Better Side of Me.
Awesome.
There's my darkness, there's my light. There's my gentle, there's my fight. It's hard to tell who'll show up or who you'll be with tonight. Patience sometimes eludes me. Go so fast, too blind to see. Little things you
And we just played for you Better Side of Me, John McAndrew's latest work, who's with us this morning. John, I mean, the song really touches my soul. It sounds great. That's one of the tracks on your newest album. For everyone listening, where can they purchase this new release?
Well, it's available online everywhere, johnmcandrew.com, Quarter Valley Records, .com, and then Apple Music, Amazon. It's available pretty much everywhere, and I appreciate you playing that track.
Oh, it sounds great. Your piano sounds so clear and so you can tell your expertise is there. I mean, it hits my soul. But reading your career, your early beginnings, you come from a family of musicians, right?
I sure do, and my dad played jazz clarinet, and my dad was my hero. He played football and was a salesman and did all this cool stuff, but he was also a jazz clarinet player. And after he started raising the family, we always had jazz music playing in the basement. And then my older brother is pretty much my musical hero, Brian. His name was Tim, nicknamed Emil, and he played bass guitar, sort of kind of the band and Grateful Dead area. So I grew up with just a ton of music going on in my head around me. And one day I remember hearing a song by the Chambers Brothers, and my brother put it on his record player, and it just ripped right through me. And I didn't know it then, but music kind of grabbed a hold of me at that point in my life. The power of it, how it can touch your heart, move people, whatever. So, I've grown up around it all my life.
So how does one become like a vocalist? I mean, did this start very early in your years?
I tell you what, that's a really good question, because my brother was such a well-known guy. I lived in this little town called Winona, Minnesota, and it was a real musical place. So I joined a band, and I could play about 3 or 4 instruments really poorly, but like a utility infielder. And I didn't play any of them very well. And I remember the leader of the band got kind of sick in the throat, and he said, "John, can you sing?" And of course I lied. I said, "Sure." He says, "Well, here's a song I want you to sing." And I learned it in a couple of days. And I remember getting up from the piano or whatever I was playing, and I stood in the middle of the stage, and my brother and all his buddies were there, and I sang this song, and everything just sort of stopped, Brian, and my brother stood in front of me crying. So evidently I could sing a little bit, and just the reaction I got and the feeling of, being the lead singer. And that night changed my life a lot, and I kept pursuing the vocals while playing instruments.
I mean, John, the story of you, John McAndrew, is really interesting to me. And one, you overcame difficulty and redemption early on. And I don't know if you mind talking about this. I mean, you had some struggles with alcoholism.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me ask you a few questions on that. Now, when did your alcoholism first begin?
Well, I'll premise it that I'm Irish Catholic.
Uh-huh.
And my dad drank. There was a lot of it around me, and I had a front row seat to it. And I think, to be honest, Brian, by the time I was about 19, I had crossed a line into an area where I could not come back, and I like to kind of say mental health issues and substance abuse, but I was 19, and it started to become an issue, and it took several more years before I threw in the white flag. And I like to call it my old life, that was my old life. And then in this new life, I kind of had to learn to grow up and learn how to do a lot of things, and a big part of it, I work with a lot of musicians now with mental health issues, and a big deal is, when you drink like that, you think you can't do anything without it, and I learned that I could do all these things without, those substances. So I'm I'm a much better person in the new life.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I heard it even got so bad with you that, you were put in the hospital. Your blood sugar level was so high.
Yeah, yeah, that was. I was in the hospital and lots of complications, and I found out I was type 1 diabetic. Yeah, and I had a blood sugar. I think it was over 700, which is not good, and then I had a liver, that was half the size of Vermont. It didn't take the doctor much to figure that out, and I. It's funny when you're young, Brian. I think a lot of us are like this. We just think we're indestructible, and I shrugged it off in a way, and in another way, I just said, "The heck with it." I don't care about living anyway. So, onward I go. But then I couldn't keep going any longer.
And John, you know this better than anybody. In your type of business, the music industry, it's full of alcohol and drugs. I mean, I'm sure you've been around that. Are you still tempted? Like, were you tempted when you were around those type of, that type of stuff?
Well, it was interesting. There are a lot of people like me, kind of. The thought of going back to where it used to be is probably not too good of an idea, but I think the best thing I did is I started to realize that there's a lot of people that don't do that like I did, and I had to surround myself with like-minded people, and I started to see all these other people with the same problems, and all of a sudden, I didn't realize, Brian, that the music became very secondary quite quickly after, mostly the drinking was more important than all the other goofy stuff that goes on around traveling around playing music. So actually it was such a breath of fresh air. I felt so much better. And then all of a sudden these opportunities started to present themselves to me. And a lot of that shows up in the music. I admit that, I write about what I know, and we get a little bit older, and certain things just take more importance. It's interesting. The Better Side of Me song was the last song I wrote, and we had 17 tracks, and we didn't have a title song. And Denny said, "What are we going to call this thing?" And I went and wrote that song in about 10 minutes, and
wow.
So that there's some bluesy stuff and rocky stuff on there, and I'm kind of touched that that's the song that moved you. I'm on a little bit of a retreat with my wife this weekend, and that old life that I was in, I did some stuff I'm not too proud of, but these days I hope that the better side of me is what you see. And I'll warn you, I'm still a human being. I goof up.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. But now speaking about your wife, now wasn't there a track that was dedicated to your wife on Better Side of Me?
Well, there's a couple of Only You, the opening track, which is really kind of a bluesy, rocky thing. I met her when I was in Alabama when I got signed to Muscle Shoals Studios, and it's kind of, I think some of your listeners will relate to this. It definitely was the beginning of my music career, and I thought that's kind of what was the cosmic plan. But really, that's when I met my wife, and that the song "Only You" is about how powerful that was. But then the song "If It Weren't for You," which is on the album, which Steve Picaro plays strings on, they're just gorgeous. It's about all these trips around the world that Nancy and I took, and I just, I didn't intend for that to be on the album, but I just wanted to kind of document musically some of the stuff that we had done, and so the kids and grandkids can hear it. And then, of course, Denny Seiwell gets a hold of it, and he really turned it into a beautiful song.
Yeah, and John, you mentioned Shoal Sound Studios. That was really a turning point in your life. That was your first major recording publishing contract, an album, right?
Yes, it was, and I was really green. You're a big baseball guy, and it's like going to spring training, you know, and you're a new guy and you're around all these pros and Roger Hawkins and David Hood, all these famous names from Muscle Shoals. And I didn't know a whole lot, and I didn't take a lot of direction at that time. They wanted to supply me with songs that would become hit songs. I said I want to write my own. And as a result, we sold about 10 records, you know. I laugh about it now. All these years later with Denny, I really listened to Denny, you know, and I let him guide me and coach me, if you will, you know. And I think that's kind of the sweetest part of this project, Better Side of Me.
So your first major recording, what was the title of the album? Was it Like We Were Made of Gold?
It is, yeah. Yeah, nice.
Wow. So I have a lot of record collectors here. Is that still available to be purchased?
Well, you can buy it from me, and I'll get you some information on how to do that when we're off the air. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. And I have like 5 minutes left with you. So Like We Were Made of Gold, your first publishing album, and then that led to your next album produced by Ken Polk, right?
Yep. And that one, Good Enough, was done in Los Angeles, and I moved down to Nashville and I did a little demo for about $1,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but you know, I did a little record called Small Crowds, and I sent it to my manager in Los Angeles, and he sent it to Ken Polk, who he's a re-recording engineer, works in the film industry. And Ken must have called me 2 days later after he got it and said, I'd love to do a record with you. And Ken really taught me a lot. In fact, I was supposed to do another album with Ken, and we had some difficulties and some things happened, and that's how I ended up doing it with Denny instead. I had an airplane ticket to L.A. Denny said, come on out, we'll do a couple songs, you know, but the intention was to do another album with Ken Polk, and he's a great producer, has gotten my music into movies, and we're, you know, our relationship continues. Yeah, that's a good record.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. Talk about some of the movies your music can be heard on.
Well, there's a song called Little Red Wagon, or a movie called Little Red Wagon, which is about Zach Bonner, this kid that walked across the United States, and there was a movie made about him, and that's the title song in the movie, and I got a couple other songs in that film. There's another movie called Jake's Corner, Jesus, Mary, and Joey. There's a couple of others that, you know, I can't remember those, but those are some of the bigger ones, and we're working on 3 or 4 other ones right now to get them placed. We just have to wait and see.
And we're talking with John McAndrew, renowned singer, vocalist, piano aficionado, who's with us this morning. And John, you know, it's unbelievable. Your music can also be heard in so many national events. Wasn't your music heard on the 50th anniversary of NATO?
It was, and I know, you know, and I just, the power, I love that kind of stuff, Brian, and I went to the Vice President's residence, and it was the 50th anniversary of NATO. Every head of state from every nation around the world, and NATO was there, and it was at the Vice President's residence, and there were movie cameras and Secret Service, and they locked me in the bathroom for a while to keep me out of the way. And I went in there and played. I had a song I was singing to everybody. I'm playing the piano, and I'm looking up at the piano, and man, there's like $100,000 worth of china and gifts from all these world leaders. And they asked me not to play too hard so I wouldn't shake anything off the piano, you know. And I wanted to play some boogie woogie and kind of, so I had to buy a nice tie to get in there. It was really a great experience, though, and I treasure that stuff as much as anything, you know.
So, John, you couldn't bang away at your 12-bar blues.
I know. It was just, you know, it was funny, and I was really nervous at first, and then I got comfortable, and then we did some interviews, and then, you know, it was fascinating to watch what was going on, and it was a little more peaceful time back then, and but NATO was still very powerful. And I had a song called "This Little Town," which was the centerpiece of that event, you know, and others that I've done, you know, about how be great if the world was one little town. We all kind of work together, you know. It's kind of a dream.
Man, and I have a couple of minutes left. I want to ask you, where would you categorize your genre of music? Would you, you know, because I looked on Apple, they have it under the category rock, Apple Music.
Yeah.
What would you classify your style of play?
Well, we're really going. It's Americana and slash blues, and I think next week in Nashville there's a big Americana fest, and Quarter Valley Records, which I want to thank, you know, while we're talking, and Bruce Cordo, who signed me. They're going to pitch me in the Americana lane, you know, just singer songwriter. That's why we put all original songs on the record. And you know, I'm old school, and I hope that people start listening from the top to the end of the record, and there's some little different styles that get woven in and out, you know, Americana, blues, and a little jazzy kind of a thing, you know. And I think I'm an old rock singer probably, but you know, it's Americana. That's kind of that's the lane we're taking, and we'll see how that goes. You know, it's very competitive market these days.
Oh, no question. And John, who are some of your favorite piano men? Like, are you a Billy Joel, Elton John, Bruce Hornsby guy?
All of the above. Billy Joel really is an amazing piano player, and he's just amazing everything. And of course, I like Elton, and I get compared to those guys a little bit. And then Bruce Hornsby came along and just floored me. Some of the songs and the voicings on the piano. And Mark Cohn is a guy that's just. I remember hearing him come on the radio, and I just thought, well, I'm going to just give up. You know, walking in Memphis, you know, and those songs, and really they've inspired me to just kind of keep going. I started to see what they were doing lyrically, musically, and all of them take some little chances musically, and that's kind of what I like. And then I'll just tell you, Oscar Peterson is the old legend. You know, you listen to him and you kind of want to quit also, but his piano playing is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I feel Bruce Hornsby is very underrated. He's not talked a lot about. I mean, the guy is unbelievable.
Well, oh God, he sure is. And his brother wrote some lyrics for him, but he's just an interesting guy, you know, toured with the Grateful Dead a little bit, and but he's got some of the greatest records and songs, and just the way it is, and so it's exciting. And then you just wait for the next person to come along, you know, to kind of fire you up. But there's something about sitting at the piano and singing that I found to be kind of who I am and what I wanted to be. You know, of course, you know, Randy Newman, man, oh man, that guy.
Unbelievable. So now, down the pipeline, what do you got going on? You touring?
We are. My agent is in Boston, Ed Keene Associates. So we're putting together a lot of the interviews. You know, I'll send him this as soon as we get a copy of it. We're going to start touring in the East Coast. We will keep you abreast of when that starts and where it goes. So we'll just kind of go around the country and play probably small theaters and performing arts centers, that kind of thing. And, you know, I'm headed to Seattle. I'm playing in Cape Cod for an event next weekend, like a thing about how music and music therapy can benefit people's mental health. So I love doing that kind of stuff. I love going out to Cape Cod. It's beautiful.
Oh, beautiful this time of year. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're always welcome here. This was great. Better Side of Me is out. JohnMcAndrew.com is the website. Anything you want to add, John?
Well, I just want to thank you for listening and helping promote the record, for playing a track, and I guess the message is we're all just human beings, and we're going to mess up a little here and there, but hopefully, the better side of us is what people see today, and that's just a hope for me, and hope that the record kind of instills that in some folks.
Great job, John. Thank you so much, and best of luck. We'll speak soon.
Thank you, brother. Ciao.
Ciao. John McAndrew, new album, Better Side of Me. Pick up your copy now. Until next week, happy collecting to all.